All right. The small council adjourns. The king is dead.
King is
Um,
dead.
The king
Long
is
live the
dead.
Live the
king.
queen. Queen. Boo.
Yeah.
cool.
Well, yeah,
Team
queen
Black.
definitely. I don't want the rapist on the throne, but he got the first
Well,
crown.
You have to be more specific.
which one?
Right.
Um, I don't know where to begin. Okay, so I'll
Gotta begin
start with
somewhere.
the thing that we
Start at
kind
the
of mentioned a
council.
little bit in the chat. The beast beneath the boards, right?
Mhm.
Now, Jenny, you said that the dragon coming in at the end is probably not the beast beneath the boards, right?
Yeah,
I
I think it's
agree.
a bit too blatant. I think it's like the other part of it is like it doesn't quite fit because the dragon pit is made out of stone. So if we're going with literal beast beneath the boards, the dragon pit arena and the dragon pit cabins are all stone. So there isn't anything beneath the boards because there wouldn't be any boards. So my current theory, and I've got a couple of things to support it, actually quoted, is Helena, who's been saying it all the way through, specifically at the point where Alicent was going to tell her some important news about the king being dead that had to be kept a secret. She was going to share a secret, and it was like, "Don't touch me." And there's a beast beneath, like it was like a shh. There's a beast beneath the boards. So I think it's more about spies and little, like the whispering, all of the undercurrents of spy work that's happening in the castle. And specifically, she was embroidering a spider, and also specifically, Varys called the white oh my gosh, the spy mistresses, like spies, particularly the maid. She said, one of the spiders is one of your ladies
Right.
to
Ah,
Alicent. So Alicent's serving maid, who has been outed as a spy for the White Worm, has been described as a spider, while Helena was embroidering a spider, while Helena was talking about the beast beneath the boards. So that
right.
is my current running theory, that it's more about her being very scared and paranoid about in-castle spies than it is about literally a dragon bursting out from the ground. But that's I'm willing to concede if there is nothing that comes more forward than what is currently being popped forward.
Well, so the handmaid being Talia. Um, well,
Yeah.
that's interesting because I think I still think that it ties in with the that it could be the rats, or there could be the spiders, or it could be the
I think it's just the general undertones of all
yeah
the spies that are happening, because like the White Worm's got spies, Varys has got spies, Otto's using both the White Worm and Varys is using Alicent, and there's like weird interconnected networks, and there's so many also insect metaphors. Like Helena
Yeah.
has a thing for insects, and we have firefly, we have a spider, we have a worm. There's just lots of different
Yeah.
allegories for
Creepy crawly.
creatures that creepy crawly and exist that are associated with spines. And then you've got like I feel like for me it's about critters that are plotting and spying and undercurrents underneath.
Yeah, it
Red
does have
Keep.
this episode does have a very
Hmm.
a secrecy theme because it all starts right with the council and the truth that Alicent tells and their decisions there. So yeah, the whole episode's about things that get out through the cracks, like the truth and the light gets out.
Yeah. Well, talking of the
Yeah.
light getting out, did you guys notice that the serving maid lit the light in the window, which was
Yup.
clearly a signal fire to the White Worm that the king was dead, and
Yep.
that's how she was the
Yeah.
first one to know outside of the walls
There you go.
the king was dead.
So
Yeah,
even the
yeah, I
light
did.
gets out.
I didn't pick up on that.
Yep. That's
That's
what
why she
that
was
No,
lighting all
was.
the candles in the windows.
It was just one. It was just the one candle, right?
Well, the one window, because
Or the
in
one
order to
window,
light that
yeah.
window, you've got to light quite a lot of candles. But
Well,
it was
was
just
it
that
one
one.
like candle piece? Didn't it have like 4 candles on each side or something? Or I think it was just
Was
like one
I think there was a lot of candles
menorah-looking
in
thing.
that room. So I don't exactly know the type of code that she would have with the White Worm regarding revealing it, but it was literally
Yeah.
one well lit, bright room in the Red
Well,
Keep that could be
yeah. It was
seen,
a very,
and
very
those who would know to
somber,
see it.
like a somber beginning too of the episode. It was so like everything was
Yeah.
dark.
I have it in my notes. Lovely atmosphere and credit to the direction. Like literally as a direct note, because honestly, the cinematography, direction of this series has been gorgeous.
Yeah, and also
like that
we
sort
see
of waking castle.
we see some Romain Djawadi classics, namely, whenever there's a big shift in the plot, we hear the piano. And we heard that at the beginning, sort of indicating the change in Monarch. Last time we heard a piano, and correct me if I'm missing any out here, it's the Night King. The Night King's final theme was done by piano. And then before that, I think we heard it with in the song The Light of the Seven, which was when Cersei blew up the Sept. So it's a rarely used instrument in the Game of Thrones soundtrack, but when it is used, I really like the impact it has. I really like the tense atmosphere that it brings, and I think it's used quite well. In fact, I think the score for this entire episode, I think, is my favorite of the series so far, and and all throughout the whole or most of the episode, actually, you saw little slow montagey bits, which I thought worked really quite well.
Yeah, a lot of people being alone in rooms thinking about the world. Sort of deep thought.
Yeah, and slow pace, because am I right in saying that this episode is called The Greens and then the next episode is called The Blacks? And
it's called The Green Council, and then
the Green Council and the Black Council?
But the Black Queen, I think, is the Green Council and the Black Queen, or something like that.
Yeah. So I think what we could see next week is a mirror on Rhaenyra's side.
Yeah, because we didn't see anything.
Which I think I called. Did I call it
You
at the end of last
did
episode?
You did.
It was going to be all in one place.
Well done.
Well, I think okay.
Well, that's what Game of Thrones historically did with episode 9.
Yeah.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, like the Battle of Blackwater, the Battle of the Bastards, all those episodes where it's just in one location.
Okay, well, we need to give all right, we'll present you with your Jenny is Right award.
Good job.
Jenny Crawford Award.
Yeah.
I will concede I'm wrong more often than I'm right, but that was one of the ones I was like, yes.
I mean, you articulated that, pretty well. Like that wasn't you didn't get that right by fluke, right? Like you got that right by gathering the pace of the plot and working out, how Game of Thrones tells a story. So fair play, that's talent.
Yeah.
The Beast Beneath the Boards could very well be, and it's just a thought, like going on what you were saying, Jenny, about the sort of the it referring maybe to more of a vibe or more of a the Beast Beneath the Board is the subterfuge and the deception and the spying and the lying and
so many mixed insect metaphors. Like again, we've got the spider, we've got the white worm, we've got Laris talks about the queen. Like if you kill the queen bee, then the rest of the hive will fall. Yeah. We've got Laris has got his fireflies. Just like it feels like the entire I'm getting that sort of itchy feeling from the number of critter references that are to do with the keep. Like that feeling of just bed bugs.
There's bed bugs inside the bed.
Yeah.
Critters everywhere.
There's termites in the foundation.
Exactly, like it is rotten to the core.
Yeah. Maggots, lots of maggots. Lots of
maggots.
As well.
Yeah.
So does that mean anything? Is it?
Well, I think
it's probably more metaphorical, but.
Well, but is it?
Ultimately,
I don't know whether or not it means that Helena's just aware of things, and there's a lot of conversation about whether or not she's neurodivergent or just psychic, or whether or not a bit of both, whether or not that's a problematic trope. Or just insightful, or is she naive? I don't know about Helena stuff. I mean, obviously, you could take in Cassandra of Troy references. Like nobody believes her. She's telling the truth, and no one believes her. She's saying that there's problems in the Foundation, and no one listens to her because she's crazy. There's lots of ways to read it. I don't know whether or not it's going to it'll be interesting to know whether or not it's references a specific incident or a specific person, a specific beast or a specific event involving a person who is a metaphorical beast beneath the boards, or whether or not it is just she is hyper aware that the castle is not safe from secrets. And the point where she was like there's a beast beneath the north, shh, mum, don't tell me things, and then her mum reached out for her and she was like, no, don't touch me. I don't know, it felt like
it might be related to Alicent then, possibly.
She might know that maybe Alicent has been speaking to the beast beneath the boards, being maybe Laris, the beast who is interested in what stands on the boards. If we're gonna go into that discussion,
I think of Laris as what could be described as the beast beneath the boards, because he seems connected with the rats. Some
you
people
still think that green theory? I'm not buying. After this episode, I 100% just think that Laris is just a weird dude with a foot fetish.
Well, okay. Okay. Let's maybe actually, because I gotta be honest, I was kind of disappointed by how that unfolded, right? Because it's like
that was not in the book, by the way. That was a surprise.
I mean, it's definitely
that was a
probably
weird scene.
In terms of
strange.
It definitely makes it very memeable, and we were talking about the fact that some of the series has been humorless, and whether intentionally or unintentionally, it's quite funny that's what he's into, and that's the payment.
Well, I didn't get the foot thing straight away, right? Like,
it took me till she took off the second sock to be like, oh.
I thought something might have been going
Directed
down.
by Quentin Tarantino.
Or or maybe it was like a demonstration that she's getting more comfortable or trustworthy with him. Because to be honest, it's a little bit on the nose that the guy with the club foot has the foot fetish.
I thought that too.
That doesn't feel like creative writing. And further to that, what was kind of fun was working out Laris's motivations and goals. And I don't want this to be the thing that motivates him to see he's got this foot fetish and what's the
ankle.
Yeah, what's the top of the foot fetish pyramid? The Queen's feet.
The Queen's feet.
No, is that it? No. And
who was it who put the meme with the hand and the foot with Alicent and Otto?
Stacey.
Yeah.
Memes. There's
Bless
so
you,
many.
Stacey.
There's gonna be so many. Oh yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yes.
That was
so
good.
I'm starting to think that Laris kind of only has the one trick, and that's burning things down.
He has no lineage at all, right? So he is totally his default.
He's the end of his line. He's the end of his
temptation is to just throw stones and mess everything up, right?
Well, that's it.
That's it. He's the stone caster.
If he wanted to strengthen his family, he presumably wouldn't have killed them. Or would be more interested in maybe marriage to, foster children, etc., right? But he doesn't seem interested in that. He's in fact explicitly said he's not interested in children. So, okay, so what is his motivation?
It's just feet.
Destruction.
It can't be
faster
just
like a rat.
That's so bad writing if it's just feet. I didn't even.
What if that's just?
It's so bad writing.
What if his deeds? What if his deeds keep getting worse and worse just for feet?
Just for feet. I mean, that's because the thing is, I didn't even clock it initially, and I thought, for want of a better expression, warming himself up, right? And I thought this is not usually.
I feel like she could have also this is clearly an agreement they've had multiple times. And I feel like she was not really wanting to do it. She wasn't really wanting to have sex with Viserys. She didn't really want to show her feet to Laris because she knew that that's what the next step was.
Dude.
And she was kind of just
they've been through this before.
Fine.
This is not the first time this has happened.
Yeah.
Okay. And then she took off both socks straight away, and I'm like, lady, eke it out a bit. See whether or not he gives some information without taking off the second sock.
What a weird
Has to be two. Has to be 2 feet.
What a weird dance of information exchange challenge,
And but also it does tie in.
Someone with more beautiful feet than
she could have done per toe. She could have gone one toe at a time.
Oh my god, you guys! Oh my god, that was that line in the episode where she was like she was trying to stab Rhaenyra, and she was like, another thing you're crushing under your pretty feet. Maybe that was already happening with her and Larys when she's like, maybe that's why guys like her. She's got such pretty feet. I know that's nuts. It was just one of those things where I'm like, she literally says the line like, another thing for you to walk over with your pretty feet to Rhaenyra.
Feet are on the mind. Pretty feet are on the mind.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But
that
also,
was after Larys was like starting to like stare at her super creepily, so I think it might have been after he may have already made that suggestion for payment.
She clearly wasn't into it, and because it did that really big close up of her being like, "Oh Christ, all right, get it over with," kind of type of thing.
No, she was just doing it for information and to get it over with. I guess.
Also, it does kind of harken back to what Rhaenyra was saying when it's like talking about basically living her life in service to men, right?
Right. Yep.
And it's like she is Alicent is basically, as much as it's easy to hate her, is trapped inside a prison. You know, you got Otto Hightower, who's basically been like priming her for where she is her entire, since she was very young. You've got Viserys, and now you've got Larys, and that's not even mentioning like Aegon, who probably gives her a fair amount of grief. And now that he's king, he's going to like be a little Joffrey, really, isn't he? Right?
Yeah. And Kristen Cole is wrapped up with Alicent too, and he's like, every chance he gets, he's defending her honor by killing people.
Yeah, I mean, there was an interesting interaction with.
Rest in peace, Lord Beeper.
Yeah, right. Like it just hit his head so. It's like, oh my God.
So in the book, there's a couple different accounts on how Lord Beesberry dies. One because it's based off of different like fake sources.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hoping that he'd get thrown out the window because that's what one of the characters says that Kristen Cole throws him out the window. But
yeah, well,
this was more realistic.
One callback call forward for that particular murder is obviously the Targaryen the Green children. They've been trained by Crispin. We've had that established. And in the last episode, there was a point where Aegon pushed Lucerys's head into the table when they started the fight at the end of the awkward dinner. So, like, just again, pulling forward, pulling back. It's interesting, like foreshadowing and like just again deep visual character building. Like there is a clear something to like Crispin's advice was like, don't let him get up, don't let him get up. And so if you've got someone in a vulnerable position, you push them down.
Yeah.
And so it was just like interesting tactics that they duplicated, where one person who was trained by one pushes another into the table, and the other one does the same thing to kill him. Unintentionally, it would seem, but he's, sorry for it.
I was surprised because I was expecting the knife, and I was also expecting Kristen Cole to have become, I suppose, more visibly different, really.
Do with some like white frostings or something, just to make him a little bit older looking.
Yeah, like he feels.
He really isn't.
Like dye's eyebrows or something.
Yeah,
like Rhaenyra's trained actresses. Like he needs to get some greys.
Yeah, something like that. Or be a bit grizzled, or have some scars, or something like that. He looks the same as he did when he started the show, and like, and there are characters that are in their 20s now that haven't been born when he was introduced, right? I mean, how old is Kristen Cole? He's got to be like 50. Yeah,
no, I'm like 40, maybe.
He definitely doesn't look 40.
Yeah, because Rhaenyra was like meant to be 15 or so when she first met him, and he was probably meant to be like early 20s, and she's meant to be like mid 20s, early 30s now, right? So
yeah, she should be in her 30s now, so he's like late 30s.
He's late 30s. He's not like crazy.
Not
old.
a chance. Aegon's 20 years old.
Yeah, but
Aegon, I think, is like 19 or something.
Let's say 20 to make it easy maths, right? So we know that Kristen Cole has been a Kingsguard for over 20 years. So at the beginning, at episode 1, he looked at least 25, if not 30.
Yeah, but if we're saying actors look the age they're meant to look, then we'll be slightly confused about Aemond and whether or not he looks older or younger than he ought to be. So I think there is some imperfections with the casting and some imperfections with all the time jumps as to actually aging up the characters.
I think they've done a pretty good job on the whole,
They've
but
done a
I feel
pretty good job, but they could do with definitely putting some greys in Kristen's hair.
Yeah. I think like they dropped the ball with Kristen a little bit, but maybe he's the problematic heartthrob.
Yeah, well, talking about heartthrob and him, there was that interesting line from Alicent. She was saying, where's my notes on it? She was saying to him, I've lost it. Where is it? Oh no!
Lost it, Jenny. You've lost it. Find it. Don't panic. Find it.
She said something along the lines of like, for the loyalty you owe me and your love of me as your queen, to Crispin. And so, again, there seems to be definitely something going on between them, and there was the way that was framed was very intimate and very romantic. So I don't know whether or not there's some sort of I think because they're both prudes, I think there might be they're having there's a sexual tension.
I would say it's more of an anti-sexual tension, right? Like it's like they're having a prude off, like. Because when God, these names are so right. Aemond and Kristen were knocking on the door of that brothel. Kristen said something like, "Every mother is the something of the lady."
No, every woman is the image of the mother.
Yeah,
that's the one. That's the one. So
should be treated with reverence or something.
Yeah, and like Kristen obviously has like his own personal demons, albeit somewhat maybe blown out of proportion. But like he's got his he probably has some weird, incel guilt about Rhaenyra, and she and Alicent probably has quite a lot of guilt about I don't know, the weird sex that she has to do with old men and Laris's thing, and she's not happy. She's so she probably does find a fair amount of solace in religion, although of course as we know from Game of Thrones, Cersei used religion as a power base, and Alicent could arguably be using that as a a legitimizing tool. But also I think she probably quite finds a lot of protection in religion, or a lot of comfort in it, because it's like a place away from being used for sex.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of threads that I could pull from this particular conversation. So, I think she is a true believer in the faith, and that is a comfort to her. And it is kind of, it's one of the things she used to kind of hoist herself up when she's having moments of doubt. Is the mother or these different gods will support me because I have been there. I wonder if ever there'll be something that happens that actually breaks her faith, but I don't think that'll happen anytime soon, but maybe. But one of the interesting things I was thinking about is I've talked about this before, where she is the master of speaking hollow hollow tropes and hollow kind of phrases that people say, platitudes, hollow platitudes about I'm sure she'll make a good, I'm sure a good and kind queen would do you good, and I'm sure she's a good and kind queen because that's the thing you say about other ladies. I'm sure the queen's duty is to the people. And actually, when you break down, she keeps saying we've got to protect the people. We've never actually seen Alicent interact with anyone of the lower classes except for her maid. In this episode, we found out that her maid is spying on her.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a real turn where the only people who are not high class people that she's interacted with. So all the time she's said this kind of hollow platitude about we must do it for the people would want this king, or the people we must protect, the people want Aegon, or we've got a duty to prevent war for the people. They all seem very hollow platitudes, and I think now that the only lower born people that she's ever interacted with was the poor girl who got raped. by her son. Potentially in the future.
Who she gaslit into saying that it was that she tempted him.
Talking about using religion and femininity as a weapon, that was vicious. And her serving maid, she now has the information that she has betrayed her. I'll be interested to see how she treats underclasses going forward, particularly now Otto has agreed, in theory, to actually maybe take a stand regarding the most desperate poor of King's Landing. I'll be interested to see whether or not Alison stands against him on that now that she is standing against him, or whether or not she will continue with the empty platitudes and say, yes, of course, we'll help the poor, blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, but it was connected to what was being said.
No,
she definitely uses femininity and she uses religion as weapons.
Yeah.
She never wears armor, but she does wear dresses. She wears the equivalent of power gowns, power suits.
Gowns.
You know what I mean? Like there's something about like the cut of her dresses that are very just like, I'm coming in.
Yeah.
Do business.
Lady Anthony, businesswoman. Yeah, for sure. But she still seems riddled in fear as well, right? Or like discomfort, or like she is doing, like, for all the weapons and underhandedness she's doing. There's like, you can't help but think that underlying it all is because she has a potential challenger to the throne. Rhaenyra's just going to at some point kill her.
Yeah.
Which sort of implies that, like, basically, and I can imagine it being, and so if they make the first move, basically it's like they're only at war because they think the other side wants to kill them. It's, you know, like, that's the tragic thing
Game
about it.
theory.
Yeah, exactly. Or yeah, exactly. So, what I found particularly interesting was that Rhaenyra actually talked to Alicent and says, "Don't you ever imagine yourself on the Iron Throne?" And I'm kind of interested to like what does she mean by that?
I have a theory, and I think it's an abstract one that I don't think anyone else in this current conversation might have thought of.
Okay, lay it upon us.
I think that, you know, there's the meme of Alicent, which is the very face of someone who's never had an orgasm. Have you seen that meme?
Yeah.
It's a picture of Alicent as like the very definition of someone who's never had an orgasm. I think that Rhaenys was using the metaphor of visualizing yourself on the Iron Throne as having had like liberation, like feeling like you are in control of the situation, or like having that moment of like having an orgasm, basically. Like it was asking her whether or not, like, I think Alicent she's got good religious, and she's inside, like, she's got good, like, she's been educated, she has good insight, like, she has great feminine, like, she knew exactly all of Rhaenys' conflict and all of the stuff that she's been going through, and she's clearly been aware of Rhaenys' issues and saying, you should have been queen, like, your husband has been pushing for this, isn't it terrible, you should have your right to your daughters and all this stuff. She is really, like, she's not stupid, she's good insight, she has good upbringing, she has good training to be a political leader, but she has no imagination, and that's part of the reason why she speaks in these platitudes. It's part of the reason why she is guided by everything that goes on. She has no imagination, she has no concept of actually breaking the walls that she exists in. Like, she lives to serve this patriarchy and to just continue as she is. And Rhaenys was saying, like, you don't want actual freedom, you just want to have a window in your box. You want to be able to look out of the window.
Yeah, that was a good metaphor. Like, you just want a window.
It was great.
Yeah, but she doesn't want to make. But even if the window was there, she doesn't want to take it, or she doesn't want to make her own window because she's in so much duty to everybody else.
But if you were to take the conversation, the phrasing of the words, "Have you ever visualized yourself on the Iron Throne?" and then change those words to, "Have you ever had an orgasm?" and replayed that scene, it would be exactly the same reaction.
kind of
would
like
be
her
that look of
imagination isn't even strong enough for her to get her own self there by herself.
Yeah, she wouldn't even have thought of it. Like she's a proper
Right.
lady. She wouldn't even thought of
Right.
that.
So it's basically like saying that she's just a tool for everybody else to use, basically, because she has no imagination
she's a tool
for herself.
Yeah, she's got no imagination, and she's got no she's like I don't like in the same way that I don't think Alicent's ever genuinely never thought of herself on the throne. She's never had the experience of thinking, I could be that. Ever. It's not even passed over her conscious mind or even her subconscious mind. And that look of, kind of embarrassment that she has and, pity that Rhaenys has, where she looks at her and she's like, oh my god, this poor girl has never thought, ever.
Like, it's basically like, have you ever thought about
enjoying her own life?
Yeah. Have you ever thought about what you want instead of basically giving whatever being used by everybody else?
Yeah, so for me that read as a have you ever actually had an orgasm? Honestly, that's I just the reactions and the way that they played off each other in that scene, and the fact that Rhaenys looked at her with such pity, such genuine pity of oh my gosh, this poor girl has never actually experienced the basic decencies in life, and therefore has never thought that she is owed them because she's never experienced them. And I just thought that was kind of that's the way I translated that scene.
It's like she's not living at her full potential of what she could be doing, and that was kind of a jab at Alicent.
Yeah, and I think maybe not a jab, but a kind of trying to make her realize it. And I think by the end of the episode, she kind of because she has that interaction with Otto, where after having that conversation with Rhaenys, where she's like, I know you've been and I think I also put that in a different podcast where it's at some point she might actually realize that Otto's been manipulating her this whole time. And after having that conversation with Princess Rhaenys, she actually has that conversation with her father where it's you've been using me. I think her imagination has been opened up, and I'm really interested to see. I had that chuckle. I don't know. That's just how I read that scene. I found that I don't know if that's just me, and I kind of want to discuss that scene with another woman and see whether or not I translated that in the same way. Because I don't know whether or not it's just my brain being weird.
It's like Rhaenys is saying well, I was in this position and I got denied, but you're in this position and you could get what I was unable to get. So I wonder if that's
and you haven't even thought of it. I think that's she's flabbergasted that this adult woman has.
Is it like a shaming of Alicent though? I don't know if it's trying to make her feel ashamed or maybe guilty for not doing what she could.
I don't think it's so much shame as I think it's trying to figure each other out. And I think Alicent had really good insight into exactly what Rhaenys' issues were and all of her conflicts leading up to this point. She lays it out plain, and then Rhaenys hits back with trying to figure out what Alicent's deal is and realizing that Alicent has never even contemplated thinking for herself.
This is a weird one, and I don't know if it would work, right? But if Alicent decided to go Super Saiyan in a metaphorical Game of Thrones sense, right? Could she groom Aegon so that he would detest sitting on the throne so much, because it looks like she's practically there, to the point where she could convince him to actually just make her the queen? Can that be done? Can the king do that?
No, I don't think that could happen. I think the whole conversation, from my interpretation of it, was more of that when she said, "Can you ever imagine yourself on the Iron Throne?" That she wasn't so much talking about Alicent herself, but as couldn't you envision a woman on the Iron Throne at all? That Alicent by default is just sort of going along with what the men are in her life are telling her to do, and she's like, we have the opportunity to put a woman on the throne because immediately before in that conversation, Alicent says to her, you should have been queen. It was denied for you. And I think what Rhaenys is thinking from that moment on is you're being such a hypocrite by saying that makes you a giant hypocrite by,
Yeah.
if I was the one that was rightfully the heir, then it should be Rhaenyra now. So
Yeah.
that's how I took it.
I think it all feeds into it's a conversation between two women about a very simple subject, but the subtext is very, very deep, and it comes into, again, like, could you picture a woman on the throne ever? Like you've literally just said that we can't. You should have been queen, but we can't govern. We have to help the men. We have to usher them gently. I think she literally used the term "usher them gently," and that's very again weaponized feminism, but not actually empowerment. Rainey's is saying, have you never thought about actual empowerment? Have you never thought about the concept of actual freedom? You just want to be able to be less trapped, and you're not thinking about pushing down walls at all. I thought it was a really, like, probably one of my favorite scenes of the series so far, in terms of, like, a lot of dirty laundry was aired, and I think there's a lot of great subtext.
Quality dialogue. That's what I like.
Yeah.
It was that's the kind of like height of the Game of Thrones kind of conversational level. That's a little bit of Varys and Littlefinger type of thing, where it's like it's some, like, they have these conversations from time to time where they just talk about what the show is about, and I kind of like that. But she's not having it, is it, Rhaenyra's? Like, she like you say, probably sees hypocrisy there, or sees bullshit. But also, actually, what I did find particularly interesting in this episode is the two Erics, or Arik and Eric, as they probably should be called.
The twin theme.
Yes, because I heard in synopsis, the blurb,
Blah, blah, blah.
the blurbs, that the Dance of Dragons had brother against brother, and I think, oh, that's kind of interesting. I didn't expect it to be like that, but like, oh yeah, I suppose the Cargills might very well be, because like the thing is, like I get why they want to end the child fighting pits, because that was gnarly. That was just,
oh my goodness. What is this, like Fight Club for children?
Yeah,
Exactly.
and did you notice they were blind as well? They blinded them, sharpened their nails and sharpened their teeth.
Yeah, they did, because they were like not attacking each other very efficiently, which
you
makes
don't
sense.
think that, like, that,
I didn't
how
notice
is that can't be legal, can it? Like,
Well, no,
they
it's
grabbed
not.
the gold cloaks.
Well,
They bribed the
said-
gold
this
cloaks.
is House of the Dragon.
yeah.
It's against the law of the land, but the whole point is the gold cloaks are a corrupt force that can be bribable, and so even the
If
spy
Daemon were
masters
still in
admit that.
charge, this would never happen.
Yes,
I
bring
Yeah,
tell
they
back
you.
just be
Daemon.
brothels.
Bring back
Yeah.
Damon. Yeah, he would never let this happen. This is what, because like who is head of the Gold Cloaks? There was someone.
It
named-
was
Captains of gold cloaks.
someone on the small council, right? I forget.
Uh, let's see. Small council. The small council, right? Well, it says here the small council consists or consisted of Grand Maester Melos, Grand Maester Orwyle, Jasper Wild. I think he's the new one. Lyman Beesberry. Rest in peace.
He's-
Oh, well,
Master Coin, I think.
yeah. It doesn't say he's dead here. Although it also doesn't. Yeah, it says that Grand Master Melos is dead. It doesn't say.
Melos
they need
is
to
dead.
They need to update Beesbury. Tyland Lannister.
Or is Lannister Master of Coin?
I think Lannister's master. of coin,
Isn't
right?
he master of ships?
Oh,
'Cause Beesbury
maybe
was master of coin.
that's about right. That sounds about right. Maybe, yeah. What's Jasper Wild then? Is he master of laws? Okay, it says
Yeah,
here
so
master
he
of
would
laws.
would he be then the default head of the gold cloaks?
Well, head of the Gold Cloaks, head of the Gold Cloaks. I'm sure there was someone that was named.
Well, the city. I don't think that
Well,
Daemon was the head of the
historically,
Gold
it
Coast,
was-
but he wasn't on this. He wasn't on the small council, right? So
Historically, it was Harwin Strong he wasn't on the small council.
Oh, I think.
Yeah.
Am I not right in thinking that the head of the Gold Cloaks
it
is
was
a small
Harwin Strong.
council position?
No,
no, it's not.
Head
Because
head
Because
of Kingsguard.
remember, Otto put Daemon in that position specifically so he wouldn't be on the small council.
Yes,
or
exactly.
something.
Yes, I am confusing it with the head of the Kingsguard, who usually, but not
Who,
always, sits on the small council, because in
speaking of
Game
the
of
head of the
Thrones.
Kingsguard,
Yeah, but in
oh,
Game
sorry.
of Thrones, Barristan Selmy did not sit on the small council because he also served for the Targaryen king, and it was considered a conflict of interest or a, unsafe thing to do, right? But like, Harold Westerling, he kind of sits on the council, right? Or stands in the corner.
Yeah, I think they are meant to be more security than input. Although I will say,
he's
obviously,
pretty badass in this episode. He's just like, he's like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
like, and no one stopped him. No one even tried. Like,
yeah. Well, I like the echoes to the Game of Thrones main series. It was very reminiscent of Barristan Selmy's taking off his white cloak, saying, "I refuse this corrupt government. How dare you?" Although that was more an insult on his honor, rather than, I suppose, he perhaps would see it being commanded to go and kill Rhaenyra as an insult on his honor. Like, obviously, it's kind of interesting you put Kristen, who literally immediately snaps to killing Beesberry because someone insults the Queen, and they then order him to go and kill the commander of the Night's Watch to get some dragons and go kill the heir to the throne.
Yeah.
And he is so insulted he just leaves. It's a different way of taking that honor system of like, someone's insulted the Queen versus I've literally been commanded to go kill the heir to the throne. I'm not. So it's interesting parallels between him and Barristan Selmy, and like the respect for the cloak and how they treat their cloaks. And like the fact that it starts off with again, if we're going with brothers, brother of the Kingsguard facing off with a brother of the Kingsguard, and then we literally later on have brothers of the Kingsguards facing off with each other, and one of the brothers taking the other side. So if we're taking the brother v brother thing, we've had like there's like an Aegon and Aemond facing off with each other. Like there is a brother,
Jason
there is not a
Tymon,
brother here that hasn't fought
Daemon
brother.
and Viserys, Otto and his brother.
Yeah. And Raymond, and just all of the brothers don't get along.
Except, of course, are the strong boys. I mean, sorry, the Velaryon boys. Oop, don't chop off my head. Oops.
Hold your tongue for that.
Oh.
Well, you didn't say proud.
They're gonna, something really bad's gonna happen to them because they're kind of like, I don't want to say they're like likable, because there are some things about, I think it's Jacaerys that, like, the fact that he's like so easily like wound up kind of like not bothers me, but it's like, chill, dude. Like,
well, it's only can only do that so many times before somebody else pops him, you know?
Yeah. He needs someone who is not his mother to sit him down and have a conversation and be like, don't rise to it. Like, true or not, don't rise to it. Like, you're just going to make it worse.
They're doing it because you rise to it. You're playing into their hands.
Yeah, like, sometimes you just have to say no to the bullies.
Shrug it off. Yeah, it's like,
as Taylor Swift tells you.
Shake it off. Yeah. I would be interested to see how they develop as fighters, because obviously they're sort of penned at the moment as like being a bit soft, but if this show has taught me anything, it's these things can come around, right?
Yeah, I'll be interested to see how they go. I mean, it's interesting that what's the name of the older brother? Oh my gosh, I need the guide.
Eric. Oh, Jacaerys.
Oh,
Jacaerys.
Or Jace.
Jace. I should just call him Jace.
Is it Jacaerys and Lucerys, or is it Jacaerys and
Jason Luke?
Jace and Luke.
Jacaerys and
the fact that Jace is a dragon rider, but does not fluently speak Valyrian at whatever age he is, like 14, 15, is like, is that meant to be a Jaime Lannister dyslexia thing, or is that meant to be he's not a true Targaryen type thing? Like, there's something like Rhaenyra seems like a good mother who is dedicated to, like, at least, even though she doesn't like the birthing process, dedicated to the upbringing of her children and loves her children dearly. And yet, even though she's so proud of her Valyrian heritage and like literally had a blood marriage to her uncle, seemingly has not taught her sons Valyrian. Like they're a bit old to be learning. I would think like she would be speaking them like Valyrian to them since babies, or at least since they got their dragons. They've had dragons for 10 years.
That is interesting because I did at some point propose the hypothesis that that there was no magic bonding between people and dragons, but it was really just that only a small handful of families knew Valerian, and thus it kind of presented itself as magic or mystical. But yeah, like as you say, if Jacaerys, Lucerys have dragons and their Valerian is, well, actually, you don't need extensive Valerian, because Daenerys in Game of Thrones didn't have like hugely extensive Valerian, did she?
No, she was fully fluent.
Oh, she was.
Yeah,
Fully fluent.
the people of Essos, of the former like Valyrian Empire, speak like a dialect of Valyrian. It's not the same like as High Valyrian. It's like, you know, like French to like Latin. So
Yeah.
there's like some knowledge of Valyrian out there.
Okay, what was she learning? Was she learning in season 1, Daenerys? That is, was she learning
Dothraki? She was learning Dothraki. Yeah.
So Dothraki, she already spoke Valyrian, because there's that wonderful reveal in, I think, season 3. Is it season 3? Yes, because season 2 is season 3 of Game of Thrones, where she has that whole thing where she's trying to buy the Unsullied. And the slave master is being really, really rude to her, and Missandei's like translating politely and being really diplomatic, and it turns out Daenerys understood everything he said and everything that Missandei said. So that's why she became really connected with Missandei, because she knew that Missandei, A, was like incredibly multilingual, and B, Missandei had really good political insights to be able to politely translate everything that he was saying and then reword it. But then she also got the like... I've been speaking Valyrian my entire life. I'm Blood of the Dragon. Also, Jacaerys.
She also probably had a degree of solid sisterhood empathy kind of thing by being under, like, because they were both maltreated by.
Yeah, the slavery connection, 100%.
Yeah, but you know, like by men in their lives and stuff like that. So.
And thus the theme continues.
I don't know. Do you think there's still any possibility, or at least deliberate ambiguity that it's just the politics of the Valyrian language that might lend dragon riders to be dragon riders, as well as, of course, like, you know, other things like developing homes for the dragons and manipulating the supply of dragon eggs and things like that? Because you don't want anyone having a dragon. You can't have anyone having a dragon. What if the commoners have a dragon?
Yeah, well, I will put this forward, which is a really straightforward argument from Ultius X, which is when you're on top of a dragon and they're flying at full pace and you're yelling commands at them, there's no way that a dragon would be able to hear a human yelling.
You gotta suspend some disbelief a little bit, you know?
So
you'd be yelling, you open your mouth and just air.
Dragons have got incredible perception, or there is some set of psychic or magical linkage between dragon riders and
Would you be able to use something else, like whistles or like touching on their head or something in their neck to lead them?
I don't know. I'm sure there's some sort of hopefully the series will explore it. I'll be interested to know more about the dragon lore, because we had you guys seen the next time on clips or next episode?
Yeah.
House of the Dragon, because there's that scene with Daemon is singing Valyrian, presumably to a dragon. And that's interesting. Like, singing to a dragon in Valyrian is like dragon taming, dragon coaxing, which, as far as I know, the default is one dragon, one rider, and dragons tolerate other people who can speak Valyrian because they're intelligent beings. But I'm interested to see what he's doing singing to a dragon, whether or not that's trying to coax a wild dragon or trying to... I don't know. Like, talking of, like, dragon lore that's yet to be fully explored, that's a new thing.
So who do we think's going to be? Who do we think's going to be on the Black Council then? Oh, I think we can see a few people, and I don't recognise any of them. So I think we may get introduced to a number of new characters.
What's interesting is they had that line, which is like, if we're going back to Viserys not being very good at actually making sure that his ruling regarding secession actually has any weight to it. He never actually, since Rhaenyra was 16, he has never called together the lords to make them re-pledge their loyalty to her, particularly after Aegon was born. He should have done it as soon as Aegon was born. He should have brought back all the lords, got them to re-pledge to Rhaenyra to make sure she sticks the landing. Like that was his wish. Make sure it's like set in stone, get all the lords to pledge to her. He could have done that any time in the last decade, and he didn't. And they made the point in the council that like half the lords that pledged are now dead. Like it's been 10 years. And then the lords that did bend the knee, they were like lower lords. There wasn't any like Baratheons or Arryns.
We saw a Stark.
Or Starks. Was there a Stark?
There was a Stark in there. Yeah, totally was a Stark in it. Yeah, because he doesn't look like a Stark. I think he's got like... I mean, it looks blonde in the video, but I think it might have been just grey.
Okay, well, like, I feel like they would have drawn more attention if it was an actual... Like, I suppose they don't swear by their houses.
I think they did say the name Stark at some point.
They did... So House Stark did pledge to Rhaenyra way back in episode 1.
Yeah.
But they weren't one of the ones that... So I'm talking about... So they had those lords pledged to Rhaenyra in episode 1, and then in this episode they had the lords who were happened by default to be in the Red Keep at the time of the king's death to bend the knee. And most of those lords are like lower lords. So it'll be interesting to see once we get to the black side, see which of the important houses go to which side. Because we're assuming Lannisters are going to be with Greens because they've got what's he called on the council, and obviously the High Towers will be with the Greens. That's blatant. But like where the Starks pledged to Rhaenyra, that was 10 years ago. So it's the North remembers. I assume the Starks will be on Team Rhaenyra, Team Green, Team Black. But what about the Arryns? What about the
Arryns? Wasn't that what? I might have been confused, but
Tyrells?
Was that the woman, the woman lord, the lady that didn't bend the knee in that scene? Was she was the lord of the Lady of the Eyrie? Oh, she was House Fell. Okay.
Yeah.
I do know that the current. Yeah, I do know that the current leader of the Eyrie is a woman, in Arryn.
Lady Jane Arryn, who is the Lady of the Vale and technically owns her loyalty to Daemon, I believe, because Daemon was married
Yes.
I don't know whether or not because he, like, the cousin potentially was spreading rumours that Daemon murdered his wife, whether or not Jane will actually concede loyalty to Blacks, or whether or not she'll go, well, you killed one of my bannermen, wife, kinslayer. I don't know. I'm really interested to see which of the High Lords for the actual like kingdoms go for which sides. That's not decided yet. And I'm also going on that from that scene. Lord Craswell does not make a good spy. Like he got die. He was going to die. The moment he was like, "Oh, I hesitated. Oh no, I'm totally safe." Like he should have come up with
He didn't come up with like an excuse.
Anything.
Yeah.
I've got his sick mother.
I left the stove on.
Yeah. Too much excitement. I need to visit the Street of Silk. Like anything, Craswell, anything.
I know. He was.
It's just a very bad spy.
I suspect, because I think the only 2 lines of dialogue he had prior to that was basically, pro Rhaenyra, right? So I think it was probably like the writing was on the wall that it was. They just decided to kill him.
Yeah.
And
I think it was also to highlight that Varys really does look and listen. So the 2 things that Larys was seen doing today was he at the point where all of the servants were being ushered into the dungeon so they wouldn't spill the beans. Alicent's handmaid was like, but God, and Laris was like, she seems suspicious. And then later on, it had all of the guys bending the knee except for Craswell, who then took his sweet time getting down because he was pretty scared and conflicted. And then Laris like staring him down. So I think it was meant to highlight that Laris really does watch and look and reads body language, feet language.
Looking for feet.
And like pays attention. So I think a lot of that was to highlight his skills as a spy, as much as to highlight that. Like, what I do want to know is actually the lords that didn't bend the knee, were they also executed or were they?
I
imprisoned?
would like to know this too, because you can't just go around killing lords for not like. Because the thing is, right? It's like King wasn't there, Queen wasn't there, no one was there. Right, like, are you going to bend the knee to a hand? You know,
are they going to make good hostages? Are they going to be hostages until their houses come and bend the knee? That would be the more sensible political move.
Maybe,
like,
yeah.
So Craswell, they can call an oathbreaker because he did bend the knee, but then clearly was going to run off to Rhaenyra. So he can be called an oathbreaker because he said that he was going to bend the knee and then didn't. While the other two who said, we are not oathbreakers, we are going to stay loyal to Rhaenyra, they technically haven't pledged themselves to Aegon, so technically they are not oathbreakers. They are just political hostages. So I'm assuming they weren't killed, because it didn't specify it.
We'll see.
I mean...
Some people definitely died from that dragon, though, huh?
Oh, yeah. I've got the feeling we're going to have unhappy peasants in the future.
That might not go down well. Actually, Rhaenyra could have just ended the war there and then, right? Just and a free barbecue.
Yeah. Well, I think the concept with that is obviously she doesn't want to do kinslaying. She doesn't want to kill people. Like, if she makes the first move, then there'll be no war. Again, her conversation with Alicent was also about the idea that if we don't strive for peace, there will be war. So her saying, look, I literally have a rocket launcher pointed at your face. Did I cut out?
No.
You're good.
No.
Okay.
Max did.
Okay. She was like, literally, I have a rocket launcher pointed at your face, your Royal Highness, and I'm choosing not to use my massive dragon to kill your entire family. Will this not, I mean for me to go to, basically she was holding up the white flag. She was saying, you were going to hold me hostage. I am literally holding the weapon right now. I'm putting up the white flag, and I'm going as a peace envoy, potentially, to Rhaenyra to try and root for peace.
Yeah.
Is how I translated that. I could kill you right now, but you said you wanted peace. I said I wanted peace. I'm leaving, and you can't stop me. So let's assume that I'm going for peace.
Mm-hmm.
Though, because, I was just saying, Rhaenys, in terms of secrecy for this episode, she was the one that escaped, right? And then did what she wanted and got on the dragon and got what she wanted, but didn't abuse the power. So that's another little parallel there of, look at me doing exactly what I wanted to do and accomplishing it and rubbing in your face a bit, but also wanting peace. But look what I did and you can't do because you don't want to do what you want. You have no imagination.
Imagine how good of a queen I would have been.
Exactly.
I'm the Red Queen, the dragon, and I'm going for peace. I'm not killing you vindictively. I'm not becoming Kinslayer vindictively. I am a badass grandma.
It was a power display.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Interestingly, though, something I just want to throw out there, because I watched the next episode. So the crown, Viserys' gold crown. So Aegon has been given Aegon's crown. Aegon the Conqueror's crown, which is made out of Valyrian steel, has been given to Aegon. Viserys' crown, which was Jaehaerys' crown, has been given, was on his body. That's when we last saw it. And Alicent laid it on Viserys' body, and his body was wrapped in the same gold cloth as baby Aegon was. Just as a nice little pattern notice that I noticed. But yeah, so she left it with the body, and then if you watch the next time on, Rhaenyra is wearing Viserys' gold crown, and I think Rhaenys took it. I think Rhaenys was brought it by Sir Eric. And the reason why, she was holding her cloak really weirdly the whole time when she was running through King's Landing. I think she was holding the crown to her chest underneath her cloak that whole time. I think she's got the crown.
Yeah, I think that's that. Well, yes. I mean, we do see the crown, in the preview for episode 10. So it definitely gets into Rhaenyra's hands one way or t'other. It's interesting that they use Aegon's crown. I mean, it's for legitimacy, right? Like they it's like they're pulling, because he has Dark Sister. Is that what he's waving around in the?
No, Blackfire.
Blackfire.
So
Daemon has Dark Sister.
That's the one, yeah. So they're using artifacts to further legitimize his claim as well. But what I find to be quite interesting is Viserys's crown is the same as Jacaerys's, so in some ways you could say that Viserys's crown might have more legitimacy because it's been worn by the most recent number of kings.
Yeah,
that's the argument. That's the argument.
And who was considered the best king as well? Jaehaerys.
Was he? I thought Aegon would be like a good one to. He has more king points.
I think he's more like a legendary. He's a real person, obviously, but he within the show. But I think that Jaehaerys is thought of as good because he reigned for such a long time over unprecedented peace.
Yeah.
And he was juxtaposed by who came before him, which was Maegor, who was cruel and terrible.
Yeah, I think part of that is, in the same way Alicent went wore green, basically calling the banners for Old Town. I think the message she's trying to send is, we are a powerhouse, we are Old Valyrian, we are prepping for battle. And the message that Rhaenyra is trying to go with is, I am the true heir. I was designated heir by my father. I am actually the queen by the ruling of my father, who is so I think they're going for slightly different political tacks, and it's political messaging through and through. So it's interesting to see. I'm so excited to see how the next episode is. I'm such a sap for the show. It's a problem.
I'm glad that they got Game of Thrones back on track.
Yeah.
It's such a test of trust too, with Alicent being the only one in the room when the king died, and everybody trusting her word.
Let's say, for example,
they weren't trusting her at their word. The boys wanted to do exactly what they did, and they were just so grateful that Alicent had an emotional. They don't give a tuppence about her emotional reasons.
Oh yeah,
language.
Or,
they're gonna do it anyway. They're just oh, good. We don't have to convince you.
Yeah, they've been planning this for ages, and they didn't want to unsully her with sully her with evil plots. But they
it might get in the way of her woman's emotions,
Yeah, well, they've got enough planning that they know exactly who they need to take out of the gold cloaks. They know what they're doing with the they've prepped. Again, sorry, in terms of repeated metaphors, they know what they're doing with the gold. They know what they're doing with the gold cloaks, and they already have the gold heraldry set for Aegon's coronation before Viserys dies. All of it's prepped. They don't have a mourning period. They should have a royal mourning period, but instead they managed to, in the course of one day, get a crown on Aegon's head.
Yeah, they don't want to feel anything.
Yeah, well, considering if we draw a recent parallel, how long is it going to be until the coronation of the current reigning monarch of the UK? Because I've got the feeling it's going to be more than a day.
Well, the coronation is in May next year. I think it's penciled in.
We're penciled in for a full year of mourning in the modern political spectrum. I feel they would have
the official mourning period. I think is it 10 days, 12 days? It's something like that.
Even so, this is 24 hours, and the king is dead. Long live the king! They had it planned and plotted, and they're grateful that she's come up with an emotional reason that she'd be along with this, rather than fighting them tooth and nail all the way. But they would have done exactly the same with or without her consent. If that's not a metaphor for the emotional strife of women in this show, God knows what.
I really like the scene where it was just Allison and Aegon talking in the carriage, and she was telling him, she's like, "Oh, your father said this on his deathbed," and he's like, "No, he didn't. Like you're an idiot. Like, do you think I'm an
Why did he
idiot?
wait?
Like,
Yeah, why did he wait so long?
like
Then?
he hated me. Like, why? Like, this is absurd."
My dad hated me. Like, he thought I was a shit.
That's it. Like, if like even
He's
if
not blind.
even if I was in Alicent's position, I'd be like, I'm gonna need more than a dizzy haze, right? Like, that's kind of like if it's the same thing as like if your dying father was on their deathbed and they're saying I'm leaving all of my wealth to you. I mean, that's not legally binding either, right? It's like,
yeah.
I think she's willfully believing what she wants to believe. Part of her wants Aegon on the throne. That's as far as her imagination can carry her, and that's what she's been told that she wants since she was 15 years old. Like, since her first baby, her father has been saying, what you want is for your son to be on the throne, what you want is for your son to be on the throne, and she even acknowledges she doesn't even know what she wants anymore to Otto.
Yeah.
So she's been told that she wants this so much that she wants her son on the throne, and part of her just believes that it's like, there's 3 Aegons. He could have been talking about Aegon the Conqueror, which he was, or he could have been talking about Rhaenyra's Aegon, or he could have been talking about Alicent's Aegon, and she specifically allows her emotional blind spot to choose the one that she actually wants.
Yeah, you'd think by default most people would just think Aegon the Conqueror, right? Considering that's who, all these new Aegons are named after.
Yeah. Well, what, she's willfully believing what she wants. She's, of course. I think she's deceiving herself, which she's doing on a very deep subconscious level. Like, she's genuinely mourning. Like, there are scenes of her genuinely mourning in this. Because Viserys wasn't a bad man, and she was committed to him for 20 years. So I don't think, like, before that, he was like a kindly uncle. Like, she did have maybe no sexual gratification from their relationship, but she did benefit from it. Anyone you spend that much time in, like, a relationship with, I think she was grieving, and I think she was allowing herself to believe what she wanted to believe.
Yeah.
And she's been told so many things so many times that she sort of believes out of repetition with what people have told her.
Yeah, well, like, she even says that to Otto, which is like, it's like, our hearts are the same, we've always wanted the same thing, and she's like, you don't have any idea what I want, I don't have any idea what I want, you've never known. Like, you think we've got the same heart? We don't. Like, no. That was a great scene. I love that scene with her and Otto.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
And, like, the very sentiment of, like, I love, like, as a pacifist, personally, I love that someone's vocalizing the concept that being hesitant about murder is not a weakness. Like, that needs to be written in stone somewhere in the show.
It's it's like a dark foreshadowing of things to come, right?
Yeah.
And also something I can imagine her taking a U-turn on.
Yeah. Oh, she's done so many U-turns, hasn't she? She said, she would, never let herself be sullied in sex and stuff, but she's letting a man masturbate to her feet. She's paying off rape victims. She's hiding her son's depravity, and obviously, like, again, I don't know how much of it is a lack of imagination, but she's actively choosing to believe that her husband chose her son, and she's actively choosing to ignore the fact that she knows her son is a depraved rapist in order to get on with the day.
Her practice values are definitely not with her aspirational value that she talks about,
Yeah.
Big gap there.
Yeah. And it's interesting as well. How did you guys translate the "Do you even love me? You're a moron" response? Did you guys translate that as she actually believes he's a moron, or did you translate that as actually a mother being like, "Oh, of course I love you, you stupid"?
Well,
Gosh.
it's that's interesting. Game of Thrones typical ambivalence, isn't there? Because I was expecting her to say, "You imbecile, of course I love you," or whatever she called him. But also, it's a little bit like, "Oh, silly you," and then like dodging the question. It's like
Yeah.
there's probably a part of her that does love him, but also she probably does quite understand that, like,
She did put him behind him when she thought that the Red Queen was going to burn them alive. She
That's
stood
true.
in front of
Mhm.
Aegon
She
at
did
that
stay in
point.
front of him. Yep. So that's I mean, it would have killed both of them, but that does show.
It wouldn't have made a difference.
Yeah, it would have made a difference, but she still did it.
Her instinct did hold true at that point.
well, unless of course it was Aegon that hid behind her.
Oh no, she like pushed him behind her, and then
Yeah,
she
I
also
think-
told Crispin to get Helena.
Yeah.
Do you mean Kristen?
Christian, sorry, I keep
You're
calling him.
Kristen.
Crispy Queen.
I have
Crispin
name blindness,
Cream.
and this show does not help.
He gets into it in the ceremony though. He's like, you know what? Maybe I
yeah.
do want to be king.
Yeah, he like slowly warms up to it. He starts like he starts thrusting the sword and getting the crowd to respond.
Yeah, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm scared of how hard he's going to be to control now that he's been crowned, because there was a level of like, oh, this is what love is like, ha ha ha, power. So I've got the feeling I'm very concerned about what he's going to be like as a tyrant king.
Yeah, he really didn't want to be king, and now he knows how powerful he is. Now that he's got a little taste of it.
Like,
Yeah, I
there's
do.
that
I
line-
do. I do see a little bit of Joffrey in him.
Yeah.
More than a little bit of Joffrey, if I'm honest. You know what I mean? Like, especially now that he's king and he's got that unfettered sort of unchecked power.
Ego boost.
Yeah.
And there was that interesting moment where he didn't believe that his father had chosen him until Alicent passed him the dagger, and he was like, don't mess with me, mother, or something. And like, I think at that point he actually believed that his father wanted him to be king, and like the fact that like his mother bowed to him and his wife bowed to him and his brother bowed to him. Like I think he's going to be really dangerous and really hard to control, and Alicent's going to lose whatever fingers that she thinks she has, like power she has over him. Like, gently guide him towards peace. It ain't going to
Took a little
happen.
convincing for him, but now he knows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
it'd be interesting to see
right.
what happens.
For sure. I mean, we've got one episode left, and often in episode 9, like of a series in Game of Thrones, we would usually expect a battle, but in season 1 of Game of Thrones, there wasn't a battle, although there were some off-screen battles. Although we had a couple of battles. I'm saying battles a lot. Yeah, we have had a little. We have had some little battles. We've had more
We had the
battle
Stepstones.
violence.
We had
Yeah,
the
Stepstones.
Stepstones battle.
So
Right.
yeah, I suppose half of the course, especially if this is going to end up being a 4 or 5 season show, which I think I've read somewhere that it's looking at being. They've already commissioned season 2, because I think what they wanted to do is like, you know, I mean, they often have these things on ice ready to go even before the first season's aired, because, like, to be honest, like, producers know if a show's good. Like, they knew The Mandalorian was going to be good, even though, like, it was a relatively new kind of thing that they were doing. Like, you know, you can look at it, you know, right?
Well, they got enough
Like-
hype around it and support that it's going to be
Yeah.
good.
So, yeah, but like, so they've commissioned. So this is almost certainly going to go the distance. I've seen nothing but great reviews so far. Like, people were saying like their least favorite episode of the season's getting like 8s and 8.5s and stuff like this. It's like, yeah, that's
Wow,
fine. You know,
Pretty good.
it's
good.
about as good as it can be. You know, like, realistically, I would love to have a bit more comic relief, and I suspect we will see that in season 2, because that's quite a widely held criticism, right? And a mild one at that, but it is quite dour. I don't know
You got
how
to get
fun.
people hooked in a little bit before they do some comic stuff.
Yeah. I think a lot of it is because the source material is quite like it's different. You know, the source material is different in form. Then it doesn't naturally like it's it doesn't naturally lend itself to as like characters that aren't essential and all that kind of stuff. But I think we can. I would be mildly disappointed if they didn't take that one on board, because I think a lot of people could have appreciated a bit of levity. But I'm going off on a tangent here. What I'm trying to say is episode 10. Now, obviously, they're not going to wrap up the entire Dance of Dragons in one episode. This is obviously like season 1's a prequel, basically, or like a prologue is probably more appropriate. And now I suspect, but I could be wrong. I suspect that like we've seen the characters age up, we've seen them grow up, we've seen who they are, we've seen their backstories, we know what their motivations are, except Laris, because I refuse to believe it's just feet.
It says cover motivation.
I don't know. Like,
maybe
at least with Varys in Game of Thrones, like he had a more benevolent interest, right? Even though he didn't have a family or didn't care for one. But like Laris, feet. Is that it? Is that worth killing your family for? I mean, it's not like he couldn't do feet elsewhere.
The Queen's feet, Chris.
There are probably places on the road of silk, the street of silk, that you can get very good feet there,
Yeah, but not Queen.
Attached or unattached.
It's real desperate now for something.
There's probably places on the street of silk that specialize in that kind of thing as well, right? Like it's not,
Do you think he's going to be an arch villain? Do you think he's got a sole motive?
I want. The thing is, I hope this is a red herring, and that he does actually have a better motivation than that, because it's just disappointing, really. I kind of like my like for him as a character kind of just faded away, in one sad wank. It's like.
What, you don't like feet, Chris?
I'm not. There's no judgment on what you're into, but like if that's your driving force in life.
Yeah, that's pretty low. That's pretty low, honestly.
It's like it's not worth killing your family for.
He should just go look at some pictures.
Sorry, it's not worth killing your family for.
Yeah, right. After all that effort, what a low expectation. After all that effort he put into taking out his family to honor them by going to some feet.
Yeah. And it's like it was clever.
It was quite low to the ground. That's the honest.
Low expectations. The lowest.
Oh, and it's like, there was a time when it's like, he could be quite clever, and I think he's only got one trick, and the first time he does that trick, you think, that's clever, but now he's just burning things down. It's like, I can burn that down.
He's got another trick up his trousers.
Well, some people
you name
just
it,
burn
I can burn it down.
Maybe he's...
That's why he's a firefly. I get it. Oh my god, that's why he's a firefly.
Firefly.
So he's not really a master of whisperers. He's just your garden variety arsonist with a logo.
Exactly. He's a foot fetish arsonist firefly.
He's my new favorite character now.
Foot fetish arsonist firefly.
Oh, disaster. Oh.
I'm excited to see what happens, even if it's just information on that.
I was going to say it's so much needed relief, and then I feel like I need to specify comic relief.
We had a lot more comic relief in this episode than the whole first season of the show.
Yeah,
they really trod new ground here.
Oh.
Where's all the Laris memes about feet? There's gonna be so many.
Oh, there will be. There will be. I'm sure there will be.
Oh goodness.
Billions. Oh my gosh! Do you think that was what Helena was going on about with the centipede with all the feet?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Something's afoot.
The centipede has 1,000 feet, and that's what Laris has been up to this whole time. 1,000 feet.
So so I don't know. Like I suspect when it comes to episode 10, I hope we get some kind of like some kind of spectacle before we have to like bunker down for another year, right? At least another year, because they're putting crazy money into this. More money. There's more money gone into this season than in season 8 of Game of Thrones, and I don't really like. Is it just dragons? Are the dragons just that expensive? Is it that drone shot that goes over Dragonstone, which was really nice, but like
I don't know. What I don't know if you have you done any comparison on how much money is the cast? Is it the inclusive cast?
The costumes, the production, the sets, like.
There's a fair amount of green screening going.
There isn't a huge.
The hype.
A lot of it is the hype, the feet, the manicures,
the advertising.
yeah.
Making people's feet look really good.
Lotion, lots of lotion.
All the socks.
High quality stockings and socks.
Talking of high quality and stockings and socks, though, I did want to give a shout out to the costumes because, like the fact that you can see if you watch really carefully underneath Rhaenys cloak that she's put the armor on underneath the cloak. So the moment where Sir Eric turned up, she must have gotten changed in her room and then worn the cloak over her armor that whole time. So that she did do like a quick change.
Useful that she did bring armor. Does she bring it everywhere she goes? Probably, right?
I would assume so, because we've not seen her just ride a dragon. So I'm assuming that, given the age she is and the experience that she has, that if she's riding her dragon anywhere, she will probably ride in armor, just for comfort and wind protection at the very least. But I feel like that's a sensible decision. Like when you're at a certain age, you drive with your seatbelt, you ride your dragon with your armor. Like I feel like that's
you don't know who you're going to encounter going into
particularly
a hall like that.
She was going to negotiate to see whether or not granddaughters could get Driftmark. Like that's the reason why she's in King's Landing. So she was going with the intention of doing something a bit politically controversial. So I would bring my armor always. I wish in terms of costumes though, I wish they'd done something to differentiate the twins. Because for the love, I've rewatched it 3 times and I have no idea which twin was doing what.
Yeah, and like the names, it's funny that they're Eric and Eric, but it's just so confusing.
Yeah, I mean that's Game of Thrones through and through, all of the confusing names. But like literally in the scene where they were like talking about the children fighters, like it would have been nice to have one of them have like a different coloured cloak.
Oh, well,
I mean the beard size is different, but that's really all you get.
One's pointy beard, one's round beard, right?
I mean, that wasn't enough for me.
I'll have to watch again and pay attention to that.
I couldn't tell. Although I will say it's not an original Jenny thought, but Ulchifex pointed out that as the season has progressed, all of the small council has slowly got more and more bling going on, where they started off with very little jewellery, and now at the point they're out there are big chunky chains. I just wanted to point that out, because I after he pointed it out, I was like, oh, that's cool. It's a cool point. I just liked it.
We'll see what happens.
Cool.
Steering away from the socks, although those stockings were really very nice.
Cool. All right, have we said everything we want to say?
I've got 2 more things, and then I am done. So one,
left foot and right foot, right? Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So for my left, I will say there's like the whole thing with Aemond and the woman in the Street of Silk.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how much of that is just implying that like he has very different tastes to Aegon, and Aegon was just like, yeah, you're 13, get it on, bro. Or whether or not it's something more like from Game of Thrones, there was a long-running metaphor of love is the death of duty. So Aegon is really not dutiful, has no regard for training, sword work, like literacy, political training, anything like that, and spends all his time and energy on sex and levity and just doing what pleases him. Like he does what he loves and he has no duty. While Aegon,
do you think when he wanks out of the window he's trying to hit a seagull?
Maybe. That's a very specific thing. think of. Wouldn't put it past him. Put it past
Sorry, Jenny, I cut you off there with filth. I put the filth back in the box.
Sorry. Still kind of giggling about the feet. And like, and he, I don't know whether like the way that I translated that conversation with the man is that the man was the one who took his virginity. Since then, he was talking about how like he was talking that he didn't like he was the one that trains with swords. He's the one who's reading. Like he's the one who should be the true king because he's not distracted by things. He does his duty, which to me implies that he might just not be interested in sex or might not be interested in romance. Which, given that so much of the political world of Game of Thrones is wrapped up in those things, I'm interested to see whether or not he might be closeted or it was just an interest, like the way that they did that scene and really highlighted that he was uncomfortable around the courtesan, and how she was clearly aware of who he was. It was just it was an interesting scene. I'll be interested to know more about Aemond, and he seemed very insecure, and we haven't seen him be that insecure since he was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, I took that to mean perhaps a less, far along the line version of that, where he is probably quite intrigued by violence, and that excites him, and he might very well just be not interested in sex in the same way that Joffrey wasn't interested in sex, and that maybe Aemond was just like the last time he was there might have been when he was like 13, and he's just a bit like out of his comfort zone, whereas whenever he's like training with swords or doing violence of any kind, like he's loving it, like he's in his element.
Yeah, he loves it. Yeah,
loves me a bit of violence, I do.
I don't know what that scene was trying to say, but it felt like it was trying to say something very loudly, and I feel like I couldn't quite read it. And the other thing I want to say is there was the line from Aemond again in the same set of sequences where he said, "We are decent men with no taste for depravity." To, I'm going to mispronounce his name again, Kingsguard douchebag. Did I pronounce it right?
Kristen
Glover. Oh yeah, that one.
Crispy Cole.
Crispy Cole. Cole.
Crispin.
He said, "We are decent men with no taste for depravity," when obviously we are very well aware that he who is talking to is not a decent man and does have a taste of depravity. And also, I'm interested to see how far Aemond's taste for depravity goes. But also, we had the line from Daemon in a previous episode where he said, "All men are capable of depravity." And it was just interesting that those two sentences parallel each other so clearly, coming from Aemond and Daemon, who have very similar looks, very similar vibes, very similar hair, very similar attitudes towards violence and power.
Yeah.
One of them claiming that they are free of depravity, and the other one claiming that all men have depravity, including himself. So I feel like Daemon and Rhaenyra own their chaotic nature, and they own, I'd classify the Blacks as chaotic good, while I would claim that the Greens are perhaps lawful neutral. They're out for themselves, but they are abiding by the laws as written in stone and have no taste for imagination after the laws.
Yeah.
And that's my last point. I'll stop talking. I feel like I've talked a lot.
Although I suppose like the term depravity is very much open for interpretation. Someone like Aemond, for example, might not consider violence to be depraved because he was probably brought up, being very encouraged to be good at violence.
Yeah.
So the more violence he is, the more he feels like he's, because especially when you're a second son, as it were, like in terms of the royal family layout in amongst Targaryens, like a second son might be a leader of an army or something like that, some kind of general. And so Aemond probably, like in that world, violence is not necessarily seen to him as depraved in the same way that, where like, but he's also probably brought up to be like, yeah, like, sex is something you do, man and wife, no holding hands outside of marriage, and
well, like he views Aegon as depraved. Like he specifically used the words depraved to describe what Aegon is doing, whether it's specifically fathering bastards and going out and seeing whores and all that jazz. And Rhaenyra uses the term depraved to describe that Daemon abandoned her and went off and got married and didn't marry her. It's very interesting uses of the word depraved from very closely like parallel characters in very different contexts. So I'll be interested if we see the word depraved come up again, because I feel like it's going to be the sense of what people perceive as depravity from different viewpoints is, I think, really kind of a way of defining their characters very clearly and concisely, and I just found it super interesting that there is that parallel between all of those individuals on what they perceive as depraved, because it's a very specific word to use. And I'm going to stop talking now because I feel like I talk too much during these podcasts.
No, it's good. It's good.
No, you're contributing. That's what we're here to do.
Yeah. Well, I think I've covered all my bits. That wasn't.
Unlike Laris.
That was
House and Dragoned Out.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you everyone at home for joining us. Thank you to my fellow hosts, Max, Matt, Jenny, and myself. Thank you myself. It was very nice of you to. I don't. Is Max still with us? He was in and out for a bit.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Yeah, kinda.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, folks, for joining me. Thank you, folks at home, and goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.